Well, we will call our meeting to order then. Mr. Fortune will join us shortly, I'm sure. Before we get started, welcome Mr. Ogletree. This is his inaugural meeting with us.
Right.
So welcome. I'm glad to have you here, Jim.
Proud to be here.
And our first official order of business will be the approval of the minutes of the February 20th meeting, which hopefully you all received electronically ahead of time.
Move to be approved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those are approved as presented. Tom, financial report.
Okay, if you'll turn to the financial statements in your book, there's really nothing to mention on the balance sheet. It's pretty well normal as usual. And if you'll turn 2 pages over to the page dated down at the bottom, page 16, that is the month ending February numbers right in the middle of the page. Net ordinary income. You see that we're basically a break-even there, $99.71 to the budget. And then net income, the last line on the page, was $2,121.61 favorable to budget. Now, if you will turn to another page, to page 18, down at the bottom. This is year to date through February. Our net ordinary income was slightly unfavorable to budget, but that's because of group insurance, and that will catch up. And the net income, last line item on that page, you can see that we are still operating very favorable to the budget of $30,077.16. Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, that's pretty much all I have to report on the financials at this time.
Do I have any questions of Tom with regard to the financials? Motion, do we have a second on that? Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Jim, one thing you'll notice when we review our financials, when we talk about being favorable variance, it's still a loss.
Yeah.
Because we're only partially funded, so.
We're not as bad as we thought we might.
So always be close to the deficit there.
I understand.
Now moving into our committee reports, I don't see Alvin here, but did we have any activity in the investment committee?
We have one investment coming due next month.
Next, long-range planning, Dude. I know you've had a meeting in the last month.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Long-range planning committee met, and that was one item on the agenda that we addressed, dealing with a couple of items. I need to get one of them out of the way with the Imperial Field Park outside here. Some landscaping things we're looking at doing, working with the City of Griffin Main Street program, and hopefully partner with them and doing a beautification project there. The long range planning handed out to David. He'll work with Ms. Woodard with the city's Main Street program, and we'll come up with some final recommendations and design and cost, and that'll be brought back to the board at the appropriate time. We think that we have an opportunity to do a nice project out there that will be within everybody's budget. So that'll be an ongoing project, hopefully something we can finalize before the weather gets too warm. And the next item was a proposal that was brought before the board, letter of intent for the long range planning committee. We typically handle matters like this, but because this one is a little bit unusual for us. We decided to share it with the board. The intent of the letter was to tie all of the industrial sites within the lakes at Green Valley to be used as a speculative project of an international city/manufacturing model. The offer was for $13,000 an acre, and that would be $100,000 earnest money, which would be refundable if the purchaser changes his mind. There would be a 360-day inspection period. The property would close 6 months after the inspection period. At closing, only 3 sites would be purchased. 5 years from closing, the remaining sites would be purchased. The committee felt the project was not appropriate for the lakes. The time period just mentioned equates to no jobs being created for at least 2 to 3 years, and for the first 3 sites, and then up to 5 more years after that. So we would literally basically be out of business for 3 to 8 years or more in attracting projects to the park. We have a number of viable prospects for the park at present. We have offered an alternative to the letter to assist the gentleman in identifying some suitable acres for his project and offering to sell 1 or 2 sites within the lakes to get his project started. So that's where we are on that particular item, Mr. Chairman of the board. So that pretty much concludes the report from the law.
Anybody got any questions on that? I think it's fairly straightforward. It was a highly speculative proposal that would have essentially taken the lakes at Green Valley off the market for as long as 8 years, and essentially it was all speculation. It wasn't like there were jobs standing there in line. Yes, sir.
Doug, did you say that the earnest money would be refundable to the purchaser if he changed his mind?
Yes.
That's no earnest money at all. No. Okay.
There wasn't a lot of intent
No,
in the letter either.
I'll make the same deal.
Anyway, if anybody's got any other, I mean, it was a 3-4 page letter, even though there wasn't a lot of substance to it. If anybody's got any questions further about that, I'm sure David probably still has the original, so y'all feel free to ask him about it. But appreciate David getting that into his agenda for long-range planning, and getting the resolution to it rather quickly. Let's see, any action out of the Industrial Parks Committee, Walter Cliff?
Well, we're going to have a meeting after this and choose the vendors for the coming year out of the ones that are here.
Okay, good. That's for the, primarily the lawn maintenance within the parks. Chipper, anything to report Transportation Committee wise? David, Executive Director.
All right. Several items to go over today. One, just backing up, I'd like to remind, I think Ryan has heard this is also for Fred and for Jim. All new board members required to have 8 hours of training. If you have a 1-year appointment, you may or may not choose to do that. We encourage you to get the 8 hours. We'll pay your tuition, and it's usually you go half day, then you finish the next morning. We pay for the hotel room and your cost there and your tuition. If you'll see Kim, there are a number of dates to select from. She can line that up for you for your training. Jim is under a 3-year appointment, so you would be required. We encourage Fred and Ryan to also go through the process. And also, I'd like to invite all new board members to come by and visit with me at your convenience. I can bring you up to date on the authority, things we've done in the past, things we've got going now to kind of help get you up to speed a little bit. So you can just let us know when it might be convenient to come by, and we're happy to meet with you on that. On the lakes at Green Valley, we did receive this month from Spalding County an extension to our preliminary plat. We have to file those, and we had no issues. That went through actually pretty quickly. And we're also talking with the city now about lighting part of the parkway. We're probably going to try to flesh out a little bit more our landscaping and irrigation plan along with signs, particularly for Wild Plum, what is now known as Wild Plum Road. Eventually, name will be changed once we turn it over to Spalding County. On the University Food Technology Center, just to let you know, that project is moving along. Haven't heard much lately, but UGA has been working through here. It's been working through Athens. We're still working on our US EDA grant, as well as trying to get all the data together so they can start bidding out construction, which we hope will be finished in 2015, and that'll be a big deal. Chuck and I visited with the Griffin Spalding School Board on March the 4th. Since our last meeting, we made a presentation to the school board just to bring them up to date on some things the authority has done recently and through the years, and also to point out that we would like to become real partners with the school system and we want to work with them. And so that was one effort. We go periodically in front of the city commission and the county commission. We want to continue doing that, of course, but we also want to include the school board when we do those presentations. You may have noticed in the financial statements and other income, we have $2,000. That's the money we voted on last month to allow the TV people to film a car on the parkway. And actually, they're out there right now. Since you thought it was good enough to do it one time, we decided to do it again. And so they're out there. We didn't call a meeting. They're using it for a staging area. They're going to be filming actually up and down 16 in a bus today. So they're using the entrance for catering and for parking vehicles. So we'll get another $2,000 for the parking of the folks out there. And we hope they will continue to come back. And pretty good. Project Growth 1888 Mills is moving along, and we're moving towards a bond closing. And we'll let you know once we get some dates on that. But that project is moving. If you have driven by the NACOM building, you know that their sign is now gone. And there's fence and gates up. So they're trying to secure the property as they start getting ready to move into the NACOM building. One project that we had in the past, it's been about a year and a half, and this project decided that they had existing capacity in California and put their project on hold. Their project now is off of being on hold, and the president of the company contacted the state this week and wanted to know if the site here was still available, and it is. So we're back in discussions with that particular company. It's a food manufacturer, so we're particularly excited that it's a food company, and they're back on their project, and what we believe is back on.
They're looking at it because of the experiment station, the pit.
On this particular one, we actually have held 2 meetings, which we normally hold in here, out there. And they have been particularly impressed with that.
Good.
On our side, the folks out here have been very interested in trying to get into this particular product for a while. So it really is a great match for the company, even though this particular company has been making this product since the 1400s.
Yeah, this particular company.
Guinness beer?
Well, it's got, not quite.
Not quite, close.
What was cool about taking them out to UGA though is the scientists out there did a great job of anticipating some things culturally and product related that, I mean, they were just speaking their language, and this company was just, no pun intended, eating it up. I mean, the fact that they had really tailored their presentation to them, and David and I, of course, were sitting there completely lost as they started talking about something. It was fascinating.
Since they've been doing it for 600 plus years, we guess they know how they make it, but there are still some great opportunities here at UGA, and that really was a good influence, we think, a positive influence on this particular one.
What was the estimated number of employees of that investment?
This one was relatively small. I want to say it was a good solid project, maybe about 20 million. And what we're seeing now, that's a great question. A lot of the projects we're seeing, the capital investment is real good, 20 million plus. The jobs aren't as numerous as they used to be. That's because of automation and technology. So you're talking now, if you see a project with 20 jobs, that's really a good project because of all the automation. If you take Sumica's investment out here in the park is between 30 and 50 million, and they created 50 jobs. Usually if you had a project of 50 million 10 years ago, it would have been 200 people. So it's just a lot, times have changed on that respect.
But one thing you have to remember though is every job created like that creates about 5 additional jobs in the community.
That's right, and also, if they create 20 jobs, that's 20 people here that are just gonna be extremely pleased and happy with their lives from that point forward, so that's a big deal. We mentioned last month we had a couple of new food projects. One of those visited since the last meetings, so that's a good thing. It happens to be in food distribution. We don't get too many distribution projects here, and this particular one was food related, and it's one that we're excited about. One FYI item, we will probably have to call a special meeting maybe one day next week or so forth. Our budget to Spalding County is due March 21st. We got the letter from Ms. Garrison at the county. We need to turn in our budget for our funding request for Spalding County. Two more things I think I have on my list. I don't forget any. One, we also have another new food prospect for the park. It's one that has had a presence in Georgia for a number of years, but they have not had a manufacturing facility in Georgia. They have had distribution facilities in Georgia, and this would be their first manufacturing facility. Most of our projects move very slowly. Like the one we just talked about, the last conversation we had with them was 1.5 years ago, and so then we had probably a year discussion with them before it stopped, so that's 2.5 years. These things usually stretch out a long time. This one is picking up speed, and we think that it's something that's going to probably happen with it one way or the other within probably the next month, but it looks extremely good right now. And then the one that we've been talking about for the lakes, which might be the first one in the lakes, is something we need to take some action on today. We need to approve a memorandum of understanding. We're calling this one, however, at their request, a project agreement instead of an MOU. It's the same thing. Basically commits both sides to what we're doing. And to back up a little bit, we periodically take a look at the competitiveness of our community versus another state and other Georgia communities. We do that periodically to make sure, well, if we lost a project, why did we lose it? Realizing that most of the time you never know why you lose a project. They'll tell you, just didn't work out. That means they don't want to tell you why we lost the project. Could be good or bad. And every now and then we do find out some reasons why we have lost projects. We've mentioned it to you in the past that one of the things that has kept us in a non-competitive mode with other communities in Georgia, because we've lost 2 recent ones, has been part of our incentive package that relates to school taxes. And we brought it up before, and so we've taken a look at the school taxes as far as partial abatement. We've been meeting with the superintendent, been meeting with the assistant superintendent, Jim Smith as well. And we think we now have come to what we would like to try for, and we've actually offered it to 2 companies. Ironically, both companies have taken us up on it. We just announced one, 1888, to stay here, and this one looks like it's going to take us up on it. And what we're doing now is trying a new program in which we partially abate school taxes under the real property aspect. 2 categories, real property, personal property. And in this case, we've offered a partial tax abatement on school taxes for the real property. And that has made a huge difference in the way we have been attracting projects. One of the large food projects that we have now, it was strictly a site visit. And we met them on a Friday afternoon. They had 15 minutes to view the site. They loved the site. It was held by a consultant. And the last thing he said before they got back in the car and moved, he said, by the way, how do y'all handle school taxes as far as abatement? And we said, we will abate those limited basis on the real property. And he said, right answer, we'll be seeing you later. So we're hoping this has a positive effect. What we did not want it to do was hurt the school system in any way. That's why we have been meeting with Curtis and Jim. It will not at all. They had one concern. They said, we want to make sure it doesn't affect what goes on the tax digest. They get, and I forget exactly what it is, they get grants, they get money based on the tax digest. So if property goes on the tax digest and the taxes are abated, it would hurt the system. Ryan probably knows about that. In our case, we own all the property, and we lease it back to the company. We are non-taxable. The company makes payments in lieu of taxes. Nothing goes on the tax digest at all during the period of the bond issue, 0. But the company makes tax payments in lieu of taxes. So it ends up working out to be about 50-50. So actually the school system actually benefits by getting money they did not have before and doesn't hurt them. That was our goal. And so that's why we started this. In that respect, we'd like to vote on an MOU subject to Mr. Fortune taking a look at the final document. This is a standard package we normally offer. We've already talked about issuing bonds for this company, either our tax exempt or taxable bonds. And those, the 2 largest incentives we have are the bonds and limited property tax abatements. Property tax abatements are generally for 10 years, unless it's a mega project, and those are at 10% a year. And there are other small things, like every now and then we offer a small equipment relocation allowance, and we assist them in getting into a foreign trade zone if they need that, if they don't. And then we also offer sometimes to apply for an EIP grant, but generally the company pays for those expenses, so it doesn't cost us anything anyway. And so we just need to vote on this. We're actually in negotiations with the MOU currently. And so we're hoping to maybe get this wound up, and if everything works out, we hope some good news will be coming later. We also just learned last night that the company, it's an international company, and they have other divisions already in the United States, California and a couple of other locations, that do various things, different products, and they have a headquarters in New York. We just learned last night that they're now considering moving their headquarters from New York to Griffin, Georgia. So that would be a big deal as far as us in this particular company. So they would have here, we hope, a headquarters and a manufacturing facility. So with that said, we just need to vote on a memorandum of understanding the project.
And I'll point out, David, y'all may have picked up on the fact that, you know, obviously we always refer to these by project names until each time we've been given clearance by the company to actually name them. In this case, some of you may already, if you recall, you can figure out the project name. We are refraining from even mentioning project name this morning because there is a tremendous amount of anxiety right now on the part of this prospect that this project is leaking already into the community. David has been called by the project manager and said, guys, this is starting to, the company has concerns that this is starting to leak. We've assured them there's no leakage on our end. If there is any, it must be coming from perhaps vendors or others that they've engaged. However, we want to be as sensitive as we can. So what we need is a motion to approve the project agreement for unnamed prospect for the Lakewood Green Valley. Then that is subject to final review by Mr. Fortune and final negotiation. So do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
To clarify this, can we refer to it as Project X?
Project
There
X.
you go. Is the X okay with everybody? You gotta call it something. Okay.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Or we can call it unnamed prospect site, what is it? I can't read over there. Site C.
Got it.
Went from X to C.
That's
Uh,
right.
Well, let's don't say that. All right, is that it, David? All right, under old business, as you all recall. Whoops.
One other small matter. We need to also approve some updated bond documents. HK Logistics, one of the new logistics in the firm, has been sort of controlled by a company called D-Matics. D-Matics is one of the world's largest logistics companies, and they have, HK now is officially part of D-Matics. And we just need to change the existing bond documents to reflect that name change. No liability, no anything other than we want to change the bond documents to reflect the name and ownership change in there. So we do need a motion for that and for the officers to sign those.
We need a motion authorizing the name change on the bond documents for HK.
It's actually a modification agreement between the various parties that everything is basically, the names have changed to protect the innocent, but everything is right where it was before. That's what this actually does.
So do we have a motion to authorize the name changes in the documents for HK Logistics?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, that it? All right. Now, moving into old business, if you guys remember last month, we formed a nominating committee for purposes of identifying officers for the fiscal year, as well as an offshoot of that, and kind of resetting some committees that some are related to that, some are not directly related. I believe I know that Doug was the chair of our nominating committee, and I believe your nominating committee members were Walter Cliff-Houston and Johnny Goodrum.
Yes.
And we'll now turn it over to you for a report from that committee.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The nominating committee met on March 6th here at the Development Authority's office. And we have a slate of officers to present to the board for their approval. For the offices of the Griffin-Spalding Development Authority, the Griffin-Spalding Industrial Building Corporation officers, and the Joint Development Authority. Those were the offices that our committee met and discussed. And we came back with a recommendation for the board to nominate this slate of officers. Our slate consists of Mr. Chuck Copeland, who remains chairman down tonight, as vice chair, Mr. Tom Gardner, secretary treasurer. That was the slate of officers that was our board presented. Mr. Chairman, to be in order, do we give all this information out and then at appropriate time, open the floor up for any nominations that possibly come from the floor?
We have your recommended slate, and now we open up the floor to see if there are any other nominations to this slate of officers. If there are no nominations,
Nominations be closed.
we have a motion that nominations be closed, and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
And then I guess, that slate of officers is somewhat approved by, acclamation. However, why don't we just take a vote for giggles and grins? All in favor?
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, we did a motion, go ahead.
Make a motion that we approve the slate of officers as identified by the nominating committee.
Have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
That, the slate of officers, I believe, is unified between all three of those
Yes,
entities, correct?
what we have is, the officers that were just voted on, they also hold the position on the Griffin Spalding Industrial Building Corporation officers, which is, incorporate, David always tells us this, that every year when we do this, but it's, it was incorporated for whatever purposes. We decided to maintain and keep this, building industrial building corporation in effect. And we constantly, we register annually with the Secretary of State office, so, in the event for some unusual reason we need it, it's there. But,
Basically been inactive 40 years. We file one report every year, and the state makes you file a report, and we've often asked the question, why don't we just get rid of it? It's just been recommended, well, let's just leave it alone and just, who knows, let it sit, maybe we need it one day. And that's really what it is. So the current officers generally fill those slots in there. Plus, there's an additional slot. There has to be an official that actually files that one report every year.
that is the agent, and our agent of record is, David Lick. So the recommendation from the nominating committee was to make the chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer continue on in those capacities, and David look as his agent for the Griffin Spalding Industrial Building Corporation office. That was the recommendation of the nominating committee.
Can we get a motion and vote on that just to make it official?
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, and that brings us to the final item, which would be the Joint Development Authority. And that's the authority that we have that, we are part of with the, Henry County, Butts County, Lamar County, and Spalding County. And this joint authority will give us more strength and possible more regional, opportunities on projects, whereas, I think our, tax, per job, I think it adds more.
500.
$500 additional tax incentive per job, in that joint authority. And there are projects that, at one time, we, as a joint authority, looked at with the other three counties before, and that can come up again. Sometimes these projects overlap, even boundary-wise, you know, in the two or more counties, and are they all four counties can partner up and do a project in a particular county and sharing in some of the revenues and other things that may be generated. So in that joint authority, we also have those same three individuals, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary of treasury serve as voting members on that authority with the other three counties. And the actual executive directors of the industrial, or in this case, the development authority, act as a non-voting member on the authority, and that too would be David Luckett. So the nominating committee recommend that slate of officers identified, that I just identified, for the joint authority, be the slate that we recommend to the board to approve.
So we have a motion for the recommended slate of representatives to the joint Butts, Henry, Lamar, Spalding County Development Authority, the chairman, the vice chair, and the secretary treasurer, plus David Luckett, executive director. Do we have a motion on that?
Go ahead, Chip.
Motion approved.
We got a second, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report from the nominating committee.
Thank you, Dode. I appreciate you taking care of that, and I appreciate this group's confidence in the slate of officers that you put forth, and we will continue to try to serve to the best of our abilities.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to be honest with you, you've been serving during some lean times, and we feel that we're on the verge of some big, great, bright things happening. And you need to be at the helm when some of the glory comes too, so hang on in there.
Well said.
Well, thank you, sir. I
In
appreciate
the other
that.
department, they couldn't get anybody to read the survey.
That's the reality.
Take that raise, you know.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Money's no good.
Well, with that comes some shifting of committees, mainly due to some reappointments or new appointments that we have. But I'll run through these real quickly. The executive committee, we will have one change on our executive committee this year. This is made up of our executive officers, the chairman, vice chair, secretary treasurer, and the executive director, as well as our appointed representatives from the city and county. So Chipper Gardner will continue to serve on the executive committee, and Ryan, that will now place you on the executive committee as the city designee from the city commission. The investment committee will remain unchanged, Alton, unless someone objects to one of these appointments. Alton Knight is chair of the executive committee, Tom Gardner, myself, and Walter Cliff Futrell make up that committee. Long-range planning remains unchanged. David, is chair. Robert Parker, myself, Tom Gardner, and Joanne Fennessy make up long-range planning. Transportation, Chipper Gardner continues as chair, along with Johnny Goodrum and Alton Knight, and Ryan McLemore, you would slot into Joanne's previous position on the transportation committee. Audit committee is made up of David Lucky, myself, and Tom Gardner. Industrial Park Committee, Walter Cliff Futrell continue to chair that, assuming he's willing. Johnny Goodrum serves on that, along with Dode Amin. And Fred Rudvick, if you wouldn't mind taking the slot that Jerry Lowry held on that committee. The Planning Advisory Board for the Griffin Spalding Industrial Park. I serve as chairman of that committee, and supported by Chipper Gardner and David Lucky. And due to some new appointments, we'd like to ask that Jim Ogletree and Fred Rudvick join us on that committee. And as it stands right now, assuming they are willing to continue to serve, Gary Betts is our industry representative on that from Van Dag. So I guess we need to just confirm his willingness to continue to serve. The Development Review Board for Green Valley Industrial Park. I chair that committee along with David Lucky and Chipper Gardner. And on this one, I would like to ask Jim Ogletree to take a spot on that committee, as well as Fred Rudvick, essentially replacing the people that were in those positions previously. And the Development Review Board for Hudson Industrial Park, let me mention on the Development Review Board for Green Valley, Hal Ron is our industry representative on that committee, and again, assuming his willingness to continue to serve. Development Review Board for Hudson Industrial Park, I serve as chair of that, along with Chipper Gardner and Dave Lucky. And again, Fred Rudvick and Jim Ogletree, if you guys would be willing to serve on that. And then we need a replacement on that committee for our industry rep because of the change in employment out there. So we'll work on that. And for Fred and Jim's benefit, essentially what this committee does with each of those parks is occasionally things will come up relative to covenant compliance or addressing we had a parking complaint one time within one of our parks that we had to work out a resolution for. So things like that come up from time to time that we just need some consensus decisions on, and we like to include our residents within the park, as we try to make some of those decisions to make sure that they are business friendly as we do that. And I believe that would, clean up our slate of committees for, 2014. So thank you all for,
Jim, if you don't mind, for Jim's benefit, let Jim know, you know, his name was mentioned on about half a dozen committees that they don't meet every month. I was watching his body language, he was just going, whoa.
They
You
generally
know,
meet weekly.
sometimes,
most of those committees only meet on an as-needed basis. I don't believe there's been a meeting, a required meeting.
check it out,
of
Jim.
the Hudson Road or the, I know we had Green Valley had an issue a couple of years ago. Griffin Spalding, that was the other one. So I don't think you have to worry, it's not gonna pack.
It may change up like in one meeting in about 3 years.
We need to have one.
Yeah, and that is true. Once we get, this first prospect, in the lakes and we have to start dealing with signage, landscaping, covenant compliance, that one's gonna get a little busy for a while, which is good.
Yeah, good meeting.
Yeah,
We want it to be busy.
absolutely.
I believe that's all we had under old business. Moving to new business. Hearing none, we'll move to our committee reports, and let's just keep it simple and start down on the far end, or not committee reports, but community reports. Start on the far end with Kenny.
I'll keep it real simple. The commissioners met Tuesday night and approved our Main Street Board and Downtown Council to start a fundraising effort. So if everybody will get the checkbook out, we'll start today. The fundraising effort is going to be to establish the park down at the old City Hall site, and we've got some preliminary plans for that. So those two groups will start immediately in trying to raise some money to build a nice park down there that we're confident will add value to the surrounding properties as well as have a nice gathering place and green space in our downtown area. And David mentioned in two different areas, 1888 in one sentence, an EIP grant in another sentence, and it just so happens that the city and David are working with 1888 on an EIP grant to upgrade sewer to the old Nathan building, and we'll be meeting with them at 9 o'clock in this room if anybody's interested in hearing about that, to work with them, hopefully to get this grant approved. $500,000 grant to assist with some sewer upgrades so that 1888 has the capability for what they need in that particular area.
And without the city's participation in that, lowers our chances of keeping 1888 here, so we thank the city for their work.
Bonnie, Jane, what do you think?
Thank you. Well, our board meets today at 3:30. We will be hosting the Power Partners Expo at Southern Crescent Technical College on the 27th. That will be from 10 to 1. We'll have a panel of 5 small business people to share their experiences and answer questions to anybody who's in attendance who wants to know pitfalls or successes in business, what to do, what not to do. We are hosting the Region 3B Star Student Star Teacher Banquet on the 20th, and Business After Hours is the 18th at the Welcome Center. The Griffin Spalding Art Association is hosting that with us, and would invite all of you to stop down and see us from 5 to 7. Thank you.
April, how about Farm
Yeah,
Road?
I got a few little things. Of course, from a regional standpoint, we are very, very busy between everything's going on here and Carrollton, LaGrange, Noon, and all in this area. Got a lot of activity, a lot of RFIs are coming in, requests for information. And of course, I'm hearing a lot of good things at the state level about our property out at Lexington, the Green Valley. They're just in awe of that property and the development and just how nice it is. I was at an event 2 or 3 weeks ago, and had one of the guys from the state office approach me and mention and talk to me about that, and they're just very impressed with that property. Just one more thing I wanted to just mention. You mentioned the movie industry and what they're doing. You know, we think about them eating, dining, and doing business here while they're here. But I have a friend that works for, actually works for Sydney Lee Welding, Sydney Lee up on the north side of Griffin. And she was telling me, I didn't realize they actually rent a lot of the gases and they do some welding for a lot of the props and things. So you don't think about that. I didn't, you know, it never occurred to me, but, it's amazing what they do and what they bring to this county when they're here doing business and doing the filming. On another, note, our unemployment labor force, data is still not available. As soon as it's available, I'll be sure to get that to them, so we can get that to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Williams?
Yes, sir. County Commissioners meet Monday night at 6 o'clock. The Griffin Spalding Area Transportation Committee meets next Wednesday at 1:30 in the courthouse annex.
Ken, would you want to add anything to Kenny's report, or?
Well, just one thing, for the past few months, every month I give our board of commissioners economic development sort of report for the city, so I want to start sort of passing those numbers on to you guys, so you have a sort of a gauge of what's going on in the city of Griffin. So for the month of February, we had about almost $200,000 worth of private investment, and these numbers come through our planning and development office. We added about 17 new jobs, 9 businesses, 6 of those were in downtown. And we try to keep up with single-family development, getting this data through MLS because it's how it affects the commercial development. So for the month of February, we had 28 units sold. This is single-family detached with a dollar volume about $2.4 million. That average sale came out to about $86,000. So since I've been here, that's probably been the norm of single-family development. Even though you don't see it, there are units being moved in Griffin. So see that as a positive situation for the community. And as April noted, as far as the movies, I know Rectify has been here for weeks. And anytime a company's coming in to get a permit through the city, I'm asking them to keep a little ledger on the side of what you're spending with your vendors. So gas, welding, food, and submit that to me after filming so that we have these numbers so we can say, hey, this 2014, we issued these many permits. They were here for this long, and this is the impact they had economically in the community.
Anything else to come before us? I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
I want to get to